In 2022, I went to the movie theaters to watch this new movie that I saw called The Black Phone. And traditionally, going to the theaters to watch a horror movie, I don't have too high of expectations because a lot of them really don't turn out to be that good. But The Black Phone is hands down one of my favorite horror movies that I have ever seen. From Ethan Hawke's brilliant performance of the Grabber to the incredible story that we followed along throughout the film, The Black Phone brings you through a lot of emotions and it comes to a very, very satisfying end. In my opinion, everything about this movie from beginning to end was done really, really well, and I think a lot of reasons lie within the movie itself on why I hold it to such a high standard. So that is what we are going to talk about today. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Haydxn, and today we are going to be taking a dive into The Black Phone. So go ahead and grab yourself a snack and a drink, sit tight, and let's get into it. So The Black Phone is actually a movie based on the novel The Black Phone, which was written by Joe Hill, who is actually Stephen King's son. There are several differences in the short story and the actual movie adaptation of The Black Phone, but for the main part, it does stay relatively similar. This movie takes place in the year 1978, and it's centered around a guy called the Grabber, and the Grabber goes around and kidnaps children. Now, what he does with these children, nobody knows up until a certain point in the movie, but since it's 1978, they really can't figure out who this guy is. They're just telling kids, don't walk alone, stay vigilant, and don't trust strangers. Obviously, our main protagonist, Finney, fell for the trap and trusted a stranger. Now, Finney has a sister named Gwen, and their mother actually killed herself after she was having these really weird psychedelic dreams. It's mentioned that his mom said that she could see ghosts and see visions of things happening even if she wasn't really there, and we actually find out that this is a power that Gwen has as well. She mentions it to her father, but obviously their father is an abusive drunk who is still grieving over the death of his wife, so he's not trying to hear any of it. So that basically sets the tone for the family dynamic in this story. We have Finney and Gwen who basically have each other's backs as their mother is no longer alive and their father is an abusive alcoholic. So Finney ends up getting abducted throughout this movie, and we find him waking up in this soundproof basement. The basic premise of this whole movie is that the Grabber has Finney held hostage in this basement, and there's nothing in this basement except for a disconnected phone on the wall. He mentions to Finney that the phone over there is disconnected, so it will be completely useless for him to try and make a call to anybody to come and save him. The phone eventually starts to ring at certain points in the movie, which obviously is really weird due to the fact that it's disconnected. But every time Finney answers the phone, it's a ghost of a child that was abducted in the past telling him what he can do to escape the Grabber. So every kid before Finney was eventually killed by the Grabber, but they are calling him via their ghost form and telling him things that he can do to escape. They tell him things like if he removes a certain tile, he can dig deep enough into the floor to try and build himself a tunnel. Another kid calls and lets Finney know that if he does try to escape through the stairs, upstairs, and through the door, the Grabber will catch him there and punish him as a type of cruel game. We get to a point in the movie where police question a guy named Max, and this Max guy is basically connecting all the dots because he's one of those people who is obsessed with the case of the Grabber. We find out that he is staying with his brother. His brother isn't home at the moment, but what they don't tell you at this point is that this guy's brother is actually the Grabber, and everything happening in the basement is right underneath the house that Max and these detectives are in. But obviously nobody knows it because they still don't know who the Grabber is. Another kid calls Finney and lets him know that the Grabber has actually fallen asleep on the top of the stairs, so he can actually go up and escape through the door. The only thing is this door does have a combination lock on it, but the kid that called Finney actually gave him the combination. Obviously Finney gets through and down the street, but the Grabber very quickly catches him and returns him to the basement. After all of these phone calls and attempts to escape the Grabber, he finally gets a call from one of his friends, Robin. And now Robin was a character who actually stood up for Finney while he was being bullied at school, and he was the kid who was abducted right before Finney. One of the things he always told Finney was that he has to fight back for himself if he wants to ever make it out of a sticky situation. And that still holds true on this phone call. He basically tells Finney to fill the phone that he is talking on with dirt, and when the Grabber comes down, he just has to beat him with the phone. So then we cut to the point where we're getting a look again at Max. And now remember, this is the Grabber's brother, and he is staying in the same home with the Grabber, but he has no idea that any of this is actually going on. He finds out that Finney is in the basement, and so he goes down there to try and save him, but the Grabber ends up killing his own brother Max with an axe. Max with an axe. I like it. After this, the grabber just rushes Finney to put an end to all of this. But every escape attempt that he had made up until this point actually ends up playing into his favor. So the tunnel that he tried to dig, the grabber actually falls into, and the telephone that he had full of dirt, he ends up being able to beat the grabber with it. Now the grabber had a dog, and this dog was supposed to track down Finney, but he had a piece of steak that he found from a freezer, and he threw it to the dog to distract him so he could get up the stairs and out of the house. Now Finney's sister Gwen is one that sees visions, and so she saw a vision of this very specific house, and she went and told police that she thinks that the grabber is in there. So they go to this house only to find out that it is the house across the street from the house that Finney is escaping from currently. So the grabber had two separate houses and they were linked together by a tunnel. One of them he would hold his victims hostage in the basement, and that is the house that we seen Finney in, and the other house is where he would bury his victims underneath the floor after he was done with them. So as soon as Finney runs out of the house, the police are there and they are able to help him fully escape. Now the way they make it seem by the end of the movie is that the grabber has actually died. They make it look like Finney broke his neck with a phone cord, but I'm not sure what the end actually was, considering we do have a Black Phone 2 on the way. It seems like Blumhouse wants to make the Black Phone one of their main movies at the moment, so they have already confirmed that the Black Phone 2 is coming, and it has the original cast as the first one. So I don't know if this is going to be a prequel of sorts, or if the grabber ended up surviving and now he is after Finney and his sister. This is just something that we're honestly gonna have to wait and find out. But needless to say, this was one of my favorite horror movies that I've ever seen in theaters. The story of this movie was so emotional. It's something that you can really invest your time and feelings into, and I will be the first to say I'm not too big on the supernatural aspects of movies. So like ghosts or possessions, those aren't really my favorite things when it comes to horror. My favorite subgenre is definitely probably just a good old slasher. But watching this movie, I seriously did not mind the aspects of paranormal activities that was going around in the basement, or with Gwen seeing these visions that her mother was giving to her. I really didn't mind it, and that's how fully invested I was with this film. I also really love the character of the grabber. Ethan Hawke played this role perfectly. It really made you feel like this was a guy that would be roaming around in the 70s doing the things that the grabber was doing. It was so creepy and unsettling, and another point that I would like to make is that his masks are absolutely incredible. I love how he can change the emotion on his face. He has a sad one, he has a happy one, he has one that doesn't even have a mouth at all, and these emotions can convey several different points in the movie. They just make for a really broad range of storytelling throughout the film, and I really liked it. And the main protagonist in this movie, like I was saying, Finney as well as his sister Gwen, they played their roles so tremendously. You could really feel all of the raw emotion that they were giving, and that made you just that much more invested into their story and where this was going to end. Like I said, it's not too often I can sit down in the theater and truly appreciate a movie that I'm watching, but this was one of those that I really could. So for that reason, I give my praise and my props to the Black Phone and the team over at Blumhouse for making this movie what it was. The Black Phone 2 has a slated release date for October of 2025, so just a little bit over a year from now. So hopefully within the near future and possibly in the coming months, we will start to get some details or maybe some previews of the movie. If you guys have seen the Black Phone, let me know down in the comments what you thought about it, and if you haven't seen it, then I highly suggest you go and do so. This is one of those movies that you will not regret watching, and I'm telling you that from my personal experience, and I wouldn't lie to you guys. But that is going to be my official review and thoughts on the Black Phone. If you guys like this video, then please be sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And if you're going to subscribe to the channel, then you might as well click the notification bell as well, because it is literally right there next to the subscribe button. Thank you so much for staying until the end of this video. My name is Haydxn. It was an absolute pleasure having you here on the channel, and I cannot wait to see you guys in the next video. Peace!